In the movie Fences, right? One thing that you will see crystal clear is Denzel was traumatized in the movie. His father, traumatized him. And because of that trauma that he endured, it affected his life. He affected his outlook on life. And he eventually traumatized his own child. And if we are not careful, his child will traumatize the person that will come next. And they call this generational trauma. you know in black families, there's a lot of hardship that our parents went through, maybe in trying to make money, or living when their dad married two or three wives, or being an orphan, whatever. There are some challenges that people go through that shape them, sometimes terrible challenges. And most of us are carrying traumas in one way or another, especially in this our African setting. I'm being sincere about it. And most of the time, we don't know the trauma that we're carrying, or we don't know the effect of that trauma on other people. We may not know it. But that trauma makes it difficult for us to have good relationship with our wife, with our children, with our neighbors, with our friends. And you can see it in that movie. What people fail to understand, that Denzel was not a bad person, but because he had childhood traumas that was not resolved, that's what affected his behavior in the movie Fences. And it takes somebody who is knowledgeable, to really notice that. So my advice to you is, before you become a father, before you become a wife, before you get with other people, try to evaluate the trauma that you are facing. Try to evaluate it, to understand this, to understand the level of the trauma you are into, or you have been affected with, and try to resolve that trauma. It's important. I know in black life, we don't want to go to a psychologist. Some will tell you that they don't feel comfortable telling a stranger about their problem. Many of us don't want to do it. But you need to get your trauma resolved, because if not, you may end up bleeding all over somebody else. If not, you may end up exhibiting behavior that will hurt other people. If not, your actions will make it difficult for you to form healthy relationships with other people. And people will just look at you and call you the bad guy, because they don't know your trauma, they don't see your trauma, but you carry it, it's weighing you down. So before we get to other people, before we build a life, before we get married, enter relationships, examine the trauma that you may have and try to resolve it, please.